So currently I'm preparing tomato and pepper seeds for germination, aka the rooting process. And what I'm doing is I'm taking Ziploc bags, putting individual pieces of ripped paper towel in each, and then I'm taking a sprayer bottle filled with water, spraying the paper towel so that moistens the paper towel. This way seeds that are sprinkled on will grip onto the paper towel very nicely. Then I'm going to take my individual seed. In this case I'm looking at the Black Zebra Indeterminate Cherry tomato variety. I'm going to open it, sprinkle some seed onto the paper towel, and then I'm going to disperse the seed across the paper towel so that once the seeds begin to germinate, the roots don't grow into each other. After this is done, I'm going to take my sprayer bottle, spray it several more times to moisten the paper towel further, and then I'm going to close the bag so that air does not escape, and this allows the seed to begin to germinate. The next update I'll give will be in 8 days. Finally got all the soil set up. So over here I have 71 cups in total filled with indoor potting mix. Now normally I would use boiling water first to soak through the soil to kill any existing fungus gnat eggs that are inside. This would help to mitigate the number of fungus gnats that would appear on the surface. Now fungus gnats, generally speaking, with a lot of moisture in the soil, fungus gnats, these little flies start to appear on the surface of the soil and they just start running around and they're super annoying. So it would be best to kill them off to begin with before they start to appear, because this is soil that has been in storage for a while, so there's a high probability that these eggs do exist inside. But I don't have time today, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to sow the seeds directly into the soil. So over here, as I mentioned, we have 71 pots. I am going to start sowing shortly. You can see the majority of the seeds that I placed inside the Ziploc bags have already germinated. So basically what I'm going to be doing is that for each cup, I'm going to be making a little hole like this with my finger. I'm going to be choosing from the specific variety that I'm planting within the cup, the three seeds with very nice looking roots, preferably the longer looking roots. I'm going to take those 3 seeds and place them within the same hole in the cup. Then in about 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have little seedlings that would have formed, and then I'm going to thin them out. So I will chop off 2 of those seedlings. I'm basically going to compare the 3 seedlings that grow within, see which one looks the strongest, which one looks the best, and I'll keep that one. I'll cut off the other 2, and I'll thin the plant out, and that's the plant I'm going to keep for the cup. It all begins with a seed. Got a nice 3-seed cluster here. Hole, put it in the hole, cover the hole. No part of the seed should be exposed. Got my water bottle with the pencil hole on top. A little bit of water. That should be enough. I'm going to do a little bit around as well. That should be good for now. Label. Done. Got the tomato up fully set up now. The next update will be on the thinning process in about 2 to 3 weeks. Time has come to finally thin out some of these plants. So essentially I'm going to look at each plant, see which one is the best looking one that's sticking out of the ground, and then I'm going to get my little scissors here, and from the top of the soil just snip off the ones that don't look as good. Generally when thinning you can pull them out of the soil, but when you have something like this where it appears that all of these little plants are growing out of the same spot, if you do pull them out individually, that could disrupt the roots of the rest of the plants, and it could actually damage the roots, because underneath in the soil the roots could be tangled together. So it's actually best to just use little scissors or something to basically snip off the stem of the plant from the top of the soil. That will essentially kill the plant, and they'll get rid of the plants that you don't want. So let's see how this goes. So the first tray onto the second tray. Now how exactly do you decide which plants to cut? What defines a good plant and what defines a bad plant? Well, technically they're all good, but generally some are better. So what you want to do is you want to find a plant that is generally going upwards, in an upwards direction. Some of the plants will be very leggy, meaning the stems will be very long. This is due to lack of sunlight, right? So generally if the light source is too high or whatever, they'll grow a little taller to try and extend and lean towards the light source. You basically want to chop off the ones that are too long. They don't look that good. Too long, they'll be leaning to the side. Right, like you can see this one. So let's thin these guys out. So it's been a little over 2 months since I started these tomato and pepper plants, and as you can see, they're growing very, very nicely. In exactly 1 week, I'm going to be transplanting these outside into 2 separate gardens, given the weather permits, of course. Today is May 27th, 2023. Here are the plants that I started indoors. These plants are ready to be transplanted to these pots over here once the soil is ready. All of the soil you see right now in these felt bags are from last year's plants. They still have the roots in them. Part of the plant is still intact, so in order to make the soil usable again, we'll have to grind down that soil. The soil's set up, planting right now. Got a yellow pear tomato, indeterminate variety in my hand. Currently about to be transplanted into this hole right here for the Canadian Tire bucket. First day of garden work complete. Got 22 of these Canadian Tire buckets with tomatoes and peppers all transplanted. Gonna cage and stake them tomorrow, and also plant these ones into the ground. Gotta treat the soil first in the ground, and then these big tomatoes will be going in. Stay tuned. Right, here we are at day 2 of the gardening process. I am currently in my parents' garden. So over here today we'll be dealing with this rectangular garden bed. So this rectangular plot, the first step I'm going to take is I'm going to rake the soil so that it's flattened, and then I am going to dig 6 holes. It will be a 2 by 3, so 2 holes here, 2 holes here, 2 holes here. There'll be one variety of tomatoes in the 2 holes here, another different strain or variety of tomatoes over here, and then another variety over here. So I've got the plants already over there. Today we'll also be using fish to help out, because fish contains a lot of nutrients that are beneficial for the plants. So over here I have some canned sardines in water that I will be burying in the holes once the holes are dug. Now it's very important to remember that the holes must be deep, and the sardines should actually be covered with coffee grounds, because if the sardines are not very deep enough, or they are exposed too close to the surface, then animals may be able to smell the fish, and as a result may dig up the ground, potentially killing the plant that you plant there, and just ruining the garden bed overall. So let's get started. You may also see a lot of wood chips layered in the soil. This is because I used cedar bits to mulch my plants last year. Mulching is basically the process of ensuring that the surface of the soil, once the plants are planted, have wood chips or little pieces of stones covering the surface of the soil. This will stop weeds from growing and will also ensure that the moisture stays within the ground, so the plants can use the moisture from watering effectively. Now that the soil is all level and ready, I've got my garden trowel here. I'm going to start making the holes. The 6 holes are ready right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the fish from the cans and begin to bury them. As you can see, I've placed the sardines into each of the holes. Using fish when planting is really effective for plant growth because it provides a plant with nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and magnesium, just to name a few, down the line when the roots of the plant begin to extend downwards. So at the beginning, the plant will not really use the fish because the fish is buried so deep under, and the plant really just begins its growth at the surface of the soil. But eventually the roots will keep going down, and when they reach down, by that time the fish underneath the soil deep inside will have begun to rot and will produce a lot of nice minerals and nutrients for the plant to grow. And in this case I'm planting tomato plants, so this will result in larger tomatoes on the plants. The thing about using fish, however, is that you have to be extremely careful, because sometimes animals will pick up on the smell. City animals such as raccoons are really good at this, and if they smell it, they will come and literally dig up your plant. I've had this happen to me in the past. Plants have been destroyed because of this. So a safety precaution, a safety measure that I've started taking in the past few years is using coffee grounds. So these are coffee grounds over here. So basically, you know when people make coffee, they use coffee beans, right? Those coffee beans, they look like beans. And essentially to use the coffee beans, you have to grind them up into powder. So once coffee beans become powder, you basically pour boiling water or use a coffee machine, but essentially the water will pass through the coffee grounds, and that's how you make a cup of coffee, right? But after the coffee grounds have been used, that powder is usually thrown away. Some people will throw them in the compost bin. Some people will use them for gardening. In this case, I'm going to use them for gardening because coffee grounds are high in nitrogen. Nitrogen is very useful for plants like tomato plants, and coffee grounds also help to hide the smell of rotting biodegradable materials such as fish, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to take some coffee grounds. So here's a coffee filter. Right, usually I would put this above a cup and then pour boiling water. The coffee filter is important because then it helps the grounds stay over here, right? Otherwise, if you just pour grounded coffee beans in water, then you're going to be drinking the powder as well, right? You want to layer between the powder and the coffee when you're making coffee. So usually what people do is they have the filters, they pour the water through, and then the water, once mixed with the coffee grounds, seeps through the bottom and enters into the cup, right? So here are the used up coffee grounds. So I'm just going to pour the powder onto the fish, and hopefully the coffee grounds will help to cover up the smell so that animals don't pick up on the smell. Afterwards, I'm going to bury everything. I cover the holes with dirt and then begin with the planting. Got 5 plants in the ground, 1 more left. They're really small, so you may not be able to make them out on camera. But here is an example of how each plant looks like. This is going to grow into a very tall tomato plants that will yield large slicer type tomatoes. Those ones that you would find in a burger or things like that. So So this little thing over here, you can see the roots are at the bottom. There's a little bit of soil covering the roots, but those are the roots. So I'm just gonna place this one into the hole over here and then cover it up. There we go, all done. 6 large variety type tomatoes in the ground. Garden's finally fully set up. Got 12 tomato plants here, all cherry variety. 10 pepper plants, sweet pepper. A couple of flowers I just started growing. Sunflower, 6 big tomatoes. Tomato from the store. Big tomato just started growing. There we go. So it's been about 5 to 6 weeks since I've transplanted the tomato and pepper plants outside. They're growing pretty good right now. They're looking pretty good. Pretty good. So now we're officially 17 weeks into the growing season. You can see most of the tomato plants have now grown taller than the cages that I've placed here. And a lot of these plants are also flowering, as you can see over here. Some of them even have tomatoes already growing out. So really excited to see how many tomatoes these plants will produce this growing season. Hopefully these plants will grow as tall as the stakes, if not taller. So we'll see how it goes. 嗱，今日係8月3號 August 3rd, 2023. As you can see, the plants are pretty grown. They're pretty grown. 嗱，已經5個月啦 right? Almost 5 months. They've grown. They were planted in the middle of March, so it's almost been 5 months. 你睇下幾多番茄？哇！ I've pruned them. I've pruned them quite a bit to encourage the growth of the fruit. And as you can see, the results are outstanding this year, in my opinion. There we go. There we go. Here's the genetic experiment. This is a 3rd generation result of cross-pollination. I cross-pollinated a little bush plant and a larger plant like this, and this is the result so far. Very excited to see how these tomatoes will taste. 依幾棵咧就好甜㗎，依幾棵，依4棵喺度啊，依個幾甜啊！依個番茄咧，依種咧就係橙色個番茄嚟㗎，細個番茄。As you can see, very orange, and we also saw some peppers growing over here. Everything's growing pretty good. I'm really happy with the garden this year. Pretty happy. From seed to fruit. Yummy. Gotta get some ASMR in there. Nothing like a homegrown fresh tomato. We are now in the week of September 1st, 2023. School is about to begin this week. Looks like this tomato plant is starting to exhibit signs of late blight, which is a disease. There's early blight, there's late blight. Late blight usually happens at the end of the season. As you can see these dark spots. I have to cut these leaves off. Actually, I'm gonna rip them off right now. It's not gonna do any harm. Today is October 8th, 2023. The weather is getting cold. It's gonna be Halloween soon. It's time to take down these plants. It's time to cut them down. They won't be producing much anymore due to the changing weather. So as you can see, there are still some tomatoes on the vine. So the first step is to take all of the tomatoes that still have potential to ripen off. We can see that a lot of the leaves on these plants have become discolored. The plants have also shrunken a bit due to the changing weather, of course. So it is time to cut these down. All the plants have officially been cut down. As you can see, all the buckets are empty. Stakes are lined up on the grass. Got cages there too. I got to put those back in the garage. Here's all the cut down plants. All of this stuff came from seed. If you go back to the beginning of the video, you'll see how tiny the seeds were. A lot can come from tiny things. So if you put in a little bit of work,
it can yield tremendous results. So work hard and trust that big things will come.